Paperback Rocker, episode 86. Hey, this is Matt Severson, the Paperback Rocker, and I'm broadcasting from my 6x9-foot cinder block shack in the desert of northern Mexico, southern Texas. Welcome, and thanks for checking out my show.
The Paperback Rocker Show is on the air.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your old friend Matt, the Paperback Rocker, back again with my little podcast, that Paperback Rocker Show, where I am reading from my novel, Blue Whiskey. You may notice the audio sounding a little different because I am in the midst of a recording project of a musical nature, and I don't want to reset everything, so this is a different microphone than normal. And different processing and things like that. So I hope it doesn't distract from your enjoyment of this free podcast. So where were we last time? Oh, and also I need to apologize for missing a week because I was doing post-Hurricane Harvey cleanup, and it took up all my free time. But I'm back, and I am standing up right now, which is weird, but for 15 minutes I can do that and read this, and we'll see how maybe I'll like it better. You never know. But we are on page 169 of the novel Blue Whiskey, at the top of the page, and Stanton has just basically started, just gotten into Greenwich Village, played a show at the coffee shop, and then has told us that he played tons of shows everywhere except Greenwich Village. Okay, here we go. Over the next 6 months, I played at least 5 nights a week in coffee houses, dive bars, and bookstores. I played on the street. I played at Grand Central Station. I played in the subway. There was one place I did not play, though, the folk clubs of Greenwich Village. A couple paragraphs ago, you were thinking things were too easy for me. I guess they were, until I got blackballed. The booking agents got wind of my arrival from out of town and collectively shunned me. I don't know if they were in contact with each other, but I suspect their efforts were organized. Ben almost pulled his curly hair out over it. But I put faith in my music and tried not to take it personal. That was my only choice, really, other than giving up. I made decent money over that period, but nothing like what I could have pulled in at the clubs opening for Dylan and the rest of them. Speaking of Dylan, I saw him drinking coffee a few times in cafes when I played. He pretended he just happened to be there, but I knew he was checking out the competition. I winked at him one time and didn't see him again for weeks. That's when he started sending in Joan Baez to scout me. Looking back, it's funny, considering what close friends Bob and I became. At the time, it was frustrating to me and probably threatening to him. He's a competitive guy. I'm not. I never found out if Bob was behind the black ball, but one day the cloud lifted. A booking agent got in touch with Ben, who came rushing upstairs from the hardware store. Stanton, I've accepted a residency at the Bricklayer's Arms. Slow down. What is a residency and what is the Bricklayer's Arms? Residency means you'll be playing every Tuesday night for the next 3 months. The Bricklayer's Arms is a tavern. Dylan's played there dozens of times. I bet not on a Tuesday, I said, and felt green inside. I was a half-full type of guy, after all. Ben didn't say anything. He knew me well by then. Because of that, he also knew I was an eternal optimist. That didn't stop him from giving me a dirty look to remind me. That's wonderful news, Benny. Great job, I said. I was back in my usual self almost instantly, cured by Ben's hairy eyeball. Thanks, he said. It's just just the beginning. I have to ask, $30. That's not much for a residency, air quotes. Sure it is. You'll still be playing the other shows like we have been, and the booking agent said it's fine to take tips from the audience. I'll split them with you, I said. You know how I feel about that. I'll buy you breakfast after the show. Perfect. Immediately after we made our agreement as musician and manager months before, Ben and I cleared out the apartment above the store and had an immense sidewalk sale, which generated a decent windfall, and we had both lived there since. It was bare bones, to say the least. I won't go into the details of how we shitted and showered, but buckets were involved in both. It was Spartan at best, but neither of us complained. We were having a blast. We were a team. When he came rushing upstairs that day with the good news about the bricklayer's arms, I was practicing, sitting on a chair next to my cot and looking out the window down onto the alley behind the shop. The cot and chair were the extent of my room's furnishings in the back bedroom. In the front bedroom, Chaim was napping on Ben's old cot, as he did every afternoon. My practicing never bothered Chaim, who was half deaf. The old man was attentive and engaged when he watched me play, but if he didn't have the visual element as a guide, the deaf half of half-deaf won the tug-of-war. Thinking back, it's remarkable how much I practiced. I had more than enough gigs for my chops to stay honed, but I was a man possessed during this period. I played almost every waking moment, mentally cataloging thousands of riffs and musical passages that show up in my songs to this day, although my output has been reduced to an album or two a decade in my latter years. That Western body Gibson was never more than 3 feet away from me and was usually not out of hand, to be more accurate. When a musician who is hungry for excellence sees his instrument laying dormant against a wall, he becomes like a lusty teenager. He wants to hold it and he wants his hands all over it, and he is insatiable in his desire. Wow, that was surprising. Just the memory of that old Gibson can call up carnality in this old man. No memory of a woman could make me feel like that. Makes me sad to think of what became of that guitar. The Bricklayer's Arms was a special place. It had existed since the early days of the century and was at first solely frequented by members of the Bricklayers' Unions of New York City, especially Bricklayers Local Number 1. The tavern was on West 13th Street between 5th and 6th. It's been converted many times and is now a handmade furniture shop with loft apartments above. I've purchased many items from the store, but I never told them about my history with the building. I'm going to set this down and make a break to the other part of the room to get my drink, and I'll be back. Okay, sorry about that, but no editing is the rule. Okay. My first month at the Bricklayer was met with moderate success. My novelty among the Jewish community had, for the most part, evaporated. It wasn't that they abandoned me. It was just that the Jews in New York City were mostly devout and did not attend nightclubs as a rule. That and the fact that the Jews who could really appreciate my only tattoo were inevitably pretty old. That was all fine by me, since I wanted my music to be the focus, not my tattoo. Ben and I remained enthusiastic, finding glory in winning tiny battles. Like a writer selling a self-published book, we measured success in small numbers like 1 and 2. If one person more showed up at the Bricklayer than the previous week, we exulted. If one less showed up, it was no big deal, since it was only one. Our lives were half full, you could say. Looking back, it was one of the happiest times of my life. That may surprise you, since you no doubt know of my later fame. I won't jump ahead in the narrative, other than to say that celebrity has as many negatives as positives. That moment before becoming famous, which may be months or years, is magical. Memories of that time shimmer in my mind like heat waves. The experience was so deep and lush, it imprinted in my brain like few other things have. After the fame came, things became a blur. My memories reflect that as well. Attendance picked up in the second month of my residency at the Bricklayer. The owner had become a fan and told the booking agent to move me to Thursday, which was proportionally closer to the golden weekend. The owner also offered to serve me and Ben complimentary food before I played. That was the first time I was comped, and before long we were also quaffing a few comped beers each Thursday as well. That was after the crowds increased and the money from the cover charge at the door, the gate, grew almost exponentially. At my first Thursday show at the Bricklayer, Ben showed up with a little PA and 2 microphones, along with a pair of mic stands and numerous cables wrapped around his arms. He looked like an overwhelmed bellhop carrying all that gear. I was seated on a bar stool and jumped up to take some of the awkwardly shaped items from him. "Never mind, I've got it," he said as I neared him. "Get the speaker box out of the back seat." "The back seat of what?" I asked. "Your wonder car, or whatever you call it." I had almost forgotten I owned a vehicle. I couldn't remember the last time I started it. As I said, New Yorkers walk, even if they have a car. The reason for that? There's never a parking space. I hurried outside and retrieved the black plywood speaker box from good old Wonderlust and brought it inside. It was heavy. Everything about musical equipment from then on was heavy. My Gibson was a feather by comparison. Inside, I set the speaker cabinet down with a deep thud on the little ankle-high stage where Ben was setting up the microphone stands. I thought back to the last time I had been amplified by a microphone hanging from a rafter and laughed. "I know it's not much, but please don't mock it. My father bought this stuff for you." Hearing that, I grew distraught at the suggestion Ben had made. "I wasn't laughing at this," I said. I can't thank you and your father enough. I was just remembering something back in New Orleans." "You still dream about that place, don't you?" "Not at all. It just sort of sneaks up on me every once in a while, kind of like you and your dad did with this equipment." "Chaim Epstein is not my dad. He is my father. There is a difference." That was a profound thing he said. "Ben, my dad is a father too. He's never been a dad. I don't think his father was a dad either." "Tell me about your father sometime, Stanton, but tell me later. I have no idea how to set this stuff up." "What about Wonderlust?" I said. My Chevy was still blocking traffic. "Come on," Ben said. "Let's take your car back to the store and we'll walk back here." "Okay." As we passed the bar, Ben asked the bartender to watch the gear and told him we'd be back in an hour. As we passed through the door, Ben said, "You drive. I don't have a license. I nearly killed myself and 2 other people getting here." "I don't remember giving you my key," I said, checking my pocket. My keychain was there. "My father's store has a machine to make keys." "I still don't remember giving you my key." "You were asleep." Lesson learned. Managers have control issues. Dylan came in that night and did not attempt to act as if it was coincidence. His superior air made me comprehend that he had been the puppet master controlling my career as a Greenwich Village folkie to that point. Baez was tagging along, of course, but Dylan sent her home before having a late-night breakfast with me and Ben after my show. I didn't understand much of Dylan's mumbling rambles, but his confidence was intoxicating. From what I gathered, he thought himself the scion of Woody Guthrie. He spoke of a zeitgeist movement, I saw Ben cringe at the word. It was a bit too close to blitzkrieg, I think. When it came to addressing me, Bob addressed Ben, which was strange. Stanton Wheelhouse is damn good, but he needs to stick to that finger picking he does, else he's sitting on my back porch. The last thing Dylan said directly to Ben was, I've enjoyed meeting Stanton, and I'll see him again soon. We hadn't exchanged 2 words. Walking home, Ben and I were giddy as we attempted to understand what had happened that evening. I think some of the things he said were threats, I said. I think some were compliments, said Ben. Backhanded threats mixed with backhanded compliments. The man's an enigma, I said. And did you see how much ketchup he put on his eggs? Ben said. We both laughed and walked the rest of the way home, smiling and not speaking, remembering the evening. Okay, stopping there for episode 86, volume 30 of Blue Whiskey, a novel by the Paperback Rocker. And we are on page 174. The dim light in here. We are on page 174. I'll be coming to you hopefully the middle of this coming week with yet another episode. I have other things to attend to right now, so I'm not going to make the other episode right now. So hopefully I'll have time to do it later this week. Anyway, until I next encounter your ears, have a great life.
The Paperback Rocker has signed off.